Hello and welcome. Our small business had CARET Amicus Attorney for 26 years. They lost a lot of features in 2026, and CARET strongly pressed us to make the transition to CARET Legal. It was going to solve all sorts of problems for us, and frankly, it's just been disastrous. I want to show you some of the difficulties that have come up so you're aware if you're considering CARET Legal and can decide if these difficulties are ones you can manage. They've made a lot of work for my staff and really been a step backwards. This is a typical calendar view. You can see it comes up the whole month. It is difficult to tell what day of the month it is, but in this case, if you look down near the bottom, you'll see that Saturday the 27th is slightly highlighted in a slightly different tone, and that is the date that I made this particular video. So that's where that is in this month view. Now here you can see the week view, and again, it's a little clearer there. You can see Saturday the 27th of June stands out more clearly. Now, I want to show you a big problem with managing this calendar. You'll see above Thursday, there's a search box where you can put in something you're searching for, the text to find an appointment. And I'm just going to put in haircut because that's just a generic term and we have no issues of privacy with the data that come back. Watch this search result. It found all instances of haircut. That's fine. It found them all the way back to the year 2000 when we started using Amicus Attorney. Every single one. That would be okay if I could click at the top of the column and sort them by date in reverse so that I get the things that are in the future backwards to today that are most relevant. But it's completely non-sortable. So if I enter hair, I get all how many ever 100 entries that myself and my staff have put on the calendar for haircuts over the years when we had to duck out of the office. So clearly this is an inefficient way of searching for data. There is a way to narrow it down. It requires a bunch of extra clicks. So you can do a search where you narrow the parameters. Next to the word haircut in the search box, you'll see there's a thing that they say looks like a funnel. It sort of looks like a triangle with something out of the bottom. I guess that's sort of a funnel. And within that, you can do some restriction of the search. So you can see that you can say in the next 30 days, in the next week, in the next month. But that's about it. Anything beyond that, you'll have to take the time to put in a custom range to search for an appointment that you're looking for. This is what a new calendar entry looks like. One of the bizarre things to me is that you'll see under owners and attendees, of course, it defaults to me as the owner, but I can add people in. I don't know why it doesn't show the rest of our firm. It perpetually only shows 2 other members instead of all 4 other members. There's 5 of us in this company, but that's the way it is. So every time I do this, I have to click add a user and add that person on manually in order to put it onto their calendars as well. The other thing to show you here is notice under remind me on the right side, add a reminder. I think this is absolutely bizarre for 2026, but there is no default to include a reminder on a new appointment. You must remember each time on your own to add an entry to create a text message, an email, or this tiny little pop-up reminder. If you don't, then you don't get a reminder of your appointment. I think that's really bizarre, but that's the way that they have chosen to do this here. My secretary has instructions to put 2 reminders on because it's just difficult to keep track of these. We basically only get them by SMS. That means you have to look down at your watch or look down at your phone to realize that there's a reminder coming when you're in an appointment with somebody. I want to show you that you can add external people, the other folks on the file, to join in. This is a sample entry. The difficulty is that it only adds those people that have emails. For the most part, everyone today has an email, but sometimes we add somebody we don't have an email for and they're part of that appointment. You can't include them. They can't be listed. It's just not an option when making an appointment. I should add too that a whole separate issue, a tremendous catastrophe from my perspective, is the synchronization between CARET and Outlook. There are so many issues, it deserves an entire separate video. But the one thing to tell you here is that only that subject line is going to sync to your Outlook calendar. None of the supporting notes about that appointment will go with you. And that means that when you get to your appointment, if you had notes to tell you which door to go into or who you were meeting with or what you had to bring, that will not be there. You will have to look in the CARET app on your phone or sit down at your computer and fire up the browser in order to see those supplementary notes. I would also point out that unlike Amicus Attorney, there's no history function. You don't know who created this, when they created it, or who modified the appointment, which is a real loss of accountability in this software. It creates a secondary problem if you have users who are using a touchscreen computer and they touch the appointments in order to get up the details or make changes. It is very easy to touch it in a way that moves an appointment. So we have several times had the problem where appointments have been moved to a new time and we don't know what time they were at because there is no history. So then we have to go back in the notes, or a couple of times we've actually had to call and apologize to folks to ask them what time the appointment was made. Again, it's just very kludgy. I want to show you about repeating events. This is a repeating event that I'm actually making for November 17th. Now, once I click recurring, notice it doesn't say November 17th there to tell me that that's the starting date. You just have to remember that in your head, so you don't know what date you're making this for. Okay, well, I suppose we can manage to remember that, but you'll see that the end date always defaults to today. You'd think that if it's a recurring entry and it's starting on November 17th, that the first end date would be November 18th, and then you'd at least be in the right ballpark. But nope, it's not there. This is a real, just again, nuisance, kludgy, regressed change compared to Amicus Attorney. That's really disappointing. Also compared to Clio, if you've researched Clio. All right, now here's the actual November 17th date. Wait a minute, where's my appointment? You don't see an appointment there. Here's another major problem with this software. It shows you your business hours by default. It doesn't have any denotation on the calendar to tell you if you have appointments before 8 a.m. or after. I think it's actually 6. My browser is probably constricted a little bit here. We've already had a few instances in the 3 months we've had this software where we have missed appointments because professionals did not realize that the secretary had scheduled a phone call earlier in the morning or later in the evening on that particular day. The only way you'd know those things are there is to click on Show Full Day at the bottom of the screen. And then you can see that there was a 7 a.m. appointment. It just didn't show because of the way this worked, and you had no reason to know it was there. So you have to hope that you got an alert message, looked at it, and realized suddenly that you didn't know that you had something on your calendar. All right, so those are some issues with the calendaring function of CARET Legal that I wanted to show potential users because of concerns about how it works. Some major issues to cover in the future are significant problems with the Outlook integration for this, the difficulties with the internal email program, and how it's functionally useless to us except for outbound emails when you're seated at your laptop. And also the issue of a lack of an internal automatic backup system. You need to make sure to manually do your own backup. That's it for now. Good luck to you in your choice about legal management software. Be sure to look at other options besides CARET Legal if you're making a transition from Amicus Attorney.